Okay, so good morning, all of you, and welcome to this course on RCC flat slab buildings with shear walls and columns. So, first of all, I and Akanksha would like to welcome all of you and thank you for joining this course. So, I can assure you that we will have a good time uh, during the duration of this course. So, I hope my voice is audible. All of you are on mute and you cannot turn on your audios, so the only way to communicate would be through chat. I know there have been some feedback given that we should allow audio to be turned on by the participants, but then it becomes chaotic, so generally we do not allow the audio to be turned on. So you can just chat in, you can just chat in the chat box and we regularly monitor it, so we would be replying through uh, we would be reading your messages and we would be replying through the chat. So I hope my voice is audible and you can see me also. All right. So what are we going to do during this course? So uh, during this course, we are basically going to understand RCC flat slab buildings with shear walls and columns. Why it becomes important, we have already discussed it during the introductory session that flat slab buildings are extensively used these days, and their behavior is different from your beam column systems that you see. So therefore, it becomes important for us to understand the design of flat slab buildings. All right, good. So we will just have a quick presentation where I will just be showing you some. We would be discussing some important points today, and we would be looking that what are we going to do during this course. So I will just quickly share a presentation with you. Yes. Are you able to see this presentation right now on your screen? Okay, good. Yes, good, good. Okay. So what are we going to discuss? That what are the structural systems that are used in flat slab? First, we will discuss that. What is a flat slab and why or what is the reason for flat slab becoming so popular these days? And we will see what are the important issues for flat slab buildings that we need to discuss and we need to understand, and then we will have some queries from your side. So today is the just a foundation, or I would say just an introduction to what we are going to discuss during this course. So first of all, what do we understand by structural system? Generally, I ask this question during in the starting of every course that we have, that what is the meaning of a structural system? So what do you think a structural system means? Yes. So structural system basically means that it is a collection of elements, isn't it? There would be design elements, and when you have a collection of design elements, those are called as systems, isn't it? So if I just take a simple building over here, let us say this is a simple building and this is resting on ground. So what did I say? That my system means that it is a collection of or a assembly of structural elements, isn't it? So I will write assembly of elements, structural elements. Now, if you see any structure, especially building structures, if you see, those are subjected to which kind of loads? So mainly those would be subjected to your gravity loads, and another important type of loads which your buildings are subjected to is lateral loads, isn't it? So basically you need to have a system to take gravity loads and lateral loads. All right. Now if you look at any structure, basically you have what is called as a horizontal system. So we will call this as a horizontal system which mainly takes load in flexure, and then you have a vertical system, which mainly takes loads in compression or axial. I'm using the word mainly. That means, for example, if I take the case of vertical, it will take axial loads plus bending moments. If I take the case of horizontal system, it will take flexural loads plus axial loads. So I'm using the word mainly over here. Okay. So vertical systems mainly take axial loads. Horizontal systems are there to mainly take flexural loads, isn't it? Now, if I ask you what are the examples of structural system, horizontal structural system in case of RCC, what will you say? What are the examples of horizontal RCC structural systems? Yes. So, what will your answer be? So, slab beam, Mr. Weber is saying slab beam is one example, isn't it? Slab plus beam system, which takes your horizontal load. Then then you may have a slab plus grid beam, or I would say actually grid beam is a part of your slab plus beam system only. You can have a folded plate system. I don't know whether you have seen this or not. Sometimes when you require a large span to be covered, you also use folded plate systems, isn't it? So folded plate system can be one example. You can have arches and domes. So I can say you can have arches and domes. Okay. What else comes to your mind? And then in continuation to this, you can have flat slabs also. Okay. So flat slab essentially means that here you are having slab plus beam. In case of flat slab, you are having no beams. So it is just slab and it is resting on columns. So that is the meaning of flat slab. So basically, uh, flat slab is a horizontal system where there is no beam. There is no interconnecting beams. The slab is directly resting on columns. Okay. So when we are going to discuss during this course, we are going to mainly focus on this particular horizontal system. All right. Till now, maybe you would be doing some slab plus beam systems for your RCC structures. Mainly, we see slab plus beam system as the most commonly used system for RCC. But these days, we also see a lot of flat slab structures also. So in this course, what our effort is going to be to understand this system, flat slab. Okay. What about vertical system? Which are the vertical RCC system that you have seen? Yes. Vertical RCC system that you have generally seen. Anybody would like to comment? Simple, there are simple systems that you come across. So the most commonly used vertical system is columns, of course. Then you may have shear walls. Okay. Then it is not a RCC system, even though, but still in old times it was used, and even these days it is being used again. So those are called as load bearing masonry walls, isn't it? Even though I'm repeating that it is not a RCC system, it is a masonry system, but you can use this system for smaller structures up to G plus 2, G plus 3, having small spans. You can even use this system also. Okay. So these are the commonly used systems that you see in RCC. Either you can have a column, you can have a shear wall, or even though it is not a RCC system, but you can have a load bearing masonry wall also. Okay. So in this course, which two vertical systems we are going to mainly focus on? So we are going to focus mainly on this column and shear wall. These two we are going to discuss. All right. Any confusion in this? I hope. I mean, this is pretty straightforward, I believe. So there will not be any confusion. Okay. Good. So let us just go to first slide and see what is being written over here. Yeah, so the same thing that we just now discussed. Okay, so what are structural systems? What are the commonly seen horizontal systems? What are the commonly seen vertical systems? And what are few examples of horizontal systems? So what do you see over here are some horizontal systems commonly seen in your day-to-day buildings. So this type of system is called as your slab plus beam. This is the usual slab plus beam that we see. Okay, this type of uh, system is a waffle slab. Both these are actually examples of waffle slab type of horizontal systems. Why do we call them waffle slab? Because if you have seen that ice cream cone, have you seen that ice cream cone which is called as a waffle cone? I don't know if you have seen it or not. The big cone where you see these types of pattern on your cone, ice cream cone I'm talking about. So that ice cream cone is called as a waffle cone, isn't it? So from that waffle, this word comes to this slab. All right. So this type of system is called as a waffle system, or you can call it as a grid system also. So there are a lot of closely spaced beams over here. It is just like a mat or it is a mesh of beams, interconnected beams in two perpendicular directions. So these interconnected beams are placed and then they rest on some stiffer peripheral beams, and then you have slabs. So basically what this waffle system is used, where this is used, so this is used where you have large spans. To cover large spans without column, you can have this type of a waffle system. Okay, so this is a slab beam system. This is good for intermediate spans, you can say up to 6 meters, 7 meters. But if you want clear spans above 7 meters, 8 meters, then slab beam system may not be the most ideal or may not be the most efficient structural system that you can think of. So then you have to move to waffle slabs or flat slabs, etc. Okay. Then what is this called as? So this will be called as your flat slab system. Why flat slab? Because you have a column and column is directly connected to slab. There is no beam over here. Okay, these elements are called as, what do you see over here? These elements are called as drops. All right, why do we give this drop? We would be discussing as we move ahead. So this is a flat slab system having drops, and on your right side if you see, these columns are directly connected to slab again, but there are no drops over here, so even the drops have been done away with. So this type of system is called as what? Yes, anyone? What do we call this type of system? Columns directly connected to slab without drops. Then it would be called as what? Yes, anyone would like to comment? So these are called as flat plates. Yes, these are called as flat plates. All right, good. So we have a few examples of horizontal systems that you uh, see in your structures these days. Most commonly used structural systems. We would be mainly focusing on this and this. All right, good. Moving ahead. Yes. Now, some few points over here that if I go over here, this on this whiteboard, let me just draw. Mr. Sayyed is asking, grid and waffle slab are same or different? Actually, uh, grid and waffle slab are technically the same, just that when the grid beams are very closely spaced, then we call it as a waffle slab. Okay, and if they are I mean at a greater distance, then we generally tend to call it as a grid slab. But technically speaking and behavior wise, grid and waffle slabs are same. Mr. Sachin is asking when to use flat slab and when to use grid? Is there any criteria? See, criteria mainly in our commercial buildings or in our residential buildings where we use these flat slab systems or where we have to use these systems, mainly the criteria would be architectural criteria, isn't it? If you ask a structural engineer, your structural engineer will never recommend to use a flat slab building or a flat slab system. So the criteria mainly would depend on the architectural requirements. But if you talk about efficiency, uh, and if you talk about the problems associated with formworks, then I would say that flat slabs are easier to construct as compared to grid slabs. Flat slabs are easier to construct if you look at the difficulties in placing formwork, etc. But all these things finally depend on the architectural consideration. Yes, mainly this depends on the architectural consideration. Okay, if I take a simple portal over here, and if I say that it is subjected to gravity load, what type of bending moment do we get? So we get a bending moment like this. I hope we agree. This type of bending moment we get when you are a simple beam column system, or what we called as a portal system, is subjected to gravity loads. Now over here, let us say this was some beam, and the vertical elements were column. So this was beam, this was column, column. Now if I subject this portal to lateral load, if I subject this portal to lateral load, so if this is lateral load, then what type of bending moment do I get? So the bending moment shape that I get is something like this. Most of you will agree with me that this is the shape of bending moment that we get, isn't it? In our portal. Okay. So understand this horizontal element to be your slab and beam, etc. And the load transfer path that actually takes place, or the load transfer path over here that is followed, is in case of gravity loads also, the gravity load first acts on the slab, because that is where most of our utilities or most of the dead load is concentrated. So from slab it is going to beam, from beam it is going to column, isn't it? Even in case of lateral load, because the if I talk more about the seismic forces, because in RCC seismic forces are more important than wind, generally for the type of structures that we are dealing with. So if we talk about seismic forces, then almost all the seismic weight is concentrated on the slabs. So that gets excited first. The load from slab then is transferred to beams, and from beams it is transferred to columns. So this is the load path that we uh, get in cases of your regular slab beam column system, or what we call as the frame system, isn't it? So the bending, so the gravity load and the lateral load is transferred by the rigid movements, rigid end movements, I would say, or through movements between beams and columns, isn't it? This is how your load is getting transferred. I hope you will agree. Okay. If I ask you about the axial load diagram, then how will the axial load diagram look like? So if I draw this portal, and if this was subjected to some gravity load, how will the axial load diagram look like? So axial diagram in case of gravity will look like this. So half load will be transferred over here. Do we agree? So let us say some g by 2 and g by 2, isn't it? This is how your load will be transferred. If I talk about the axial load distribution in case of this lateral load, how does the load transfer? So there will be what is called as a compression tension couple that would be created. So if this height is h, what happens? That there is some tension force that is generated over here in this column. There will be some compression force that is generated in this column. Okay. And then let us say these were your end moments. I am calling them as M1 and M2. Okay. These are your end moments. So how is this lateral load being resisted by this portal? How is this lateral load being resisted by the portal? Let me just give some name to this. What should I give? X. Let us call it X. Yes. Can anyone tell me how is this lateral load resisted? So actually, if I take the bending moment or if I take the moment of this lateral load about the base, what I can say that this L into H, this is being equal to this tension compression couple moment. So I will call this as T into X, let us say, and T is equal to C plus these end moments that are getting generated M1 and M2, isn't it? So this is how your lateral load is getting resisted. Any question? Yes, any question over here? So lateral load, if I just write it down, lateral loads, how are they resisted? They are resisted by end moments, okay, and axial uh, tension compression couple. And why this is possible? Because your beams columns are rigidly connected to each other. They are able to generate or they are able to have this type of bending moment diagram, and these rigid joints basically help to develop the end moments, and because of which your lateral load gets resisted. Okay. What happens if this beam was resting simply supported on this column? Just to just for understanding, if this beam was resting simply supported on your column, let us say it was simply supported and it was resting on your column, in that case how will it resist the lateral load? Yes, tell me, how will it resist the lateral load in this case? Anyone? So in this case the system becomes relatively unstable for lateral loads, isn't it? Even though these columns basically they will start acting as vertical cantilevers, and because this beam is simply supported on the column, there will be no end moment that is generated. All right, so if you see, the bending moment diagram will be something like this. So this column develops a cantilever bending moment, this column develops a cantilever bending moment, and this beam develops no bending moment because it is simply supported. And there will be a very large amount of sway that you get in these types of systems, isn't it? So this is not a very good system to resist lateral load. So to increase its lateral load resistance, what do we do in such cases? If the beam is simply supported, yes, tell me. If the beam remains simply supported, what do we do in such a case to resist lateral load? So we have to provide another system which is called as bracings, isn't it? You might have seen this. This is mainly true in case of steel systems where we have to provide bracings. So what are these bracings doing? These bracings are basically helping in taking a lateral load. How are these bracings taking lateral loads? How do these bracings take lateral load? By axial forces. Okay. So basically we assume that when the lateral load is in this direction, when the lateral load is in this direction, then this particular bracing will generate compression and it will resist this lateral load by the axial compression. Similarly, if the lateral load is coming from this direction, then this particular bracing will generate compression, and this compression resists the lateral load acting from this direction. So this is what is our structural system that we provide. So what I'm trying to say is that if beam is simply supported on column, okay, then you have to introduce an additional structural system to take care of lateral loads. And one of the available options is to introduce bracings. All right, good. I hope this point is clear. Yes, any confusion in this? No. Very good. Now what happens is, okay, yeah, and how gravity load is being resisted. Lateral load we have understood. How gravity load is being resisted. So gravity load, easy to understand. How gravity load is being resisted. So gravity load is being resisted uh, by these end movements that are getting developed and by this axial force. So I will say that the gravity load is being resisted by axial loads in your columns, mainly axial loads in columns and end movements in the columns. That is how your gravity load is being resisted. Now here a very important thing to note is that all these loads are being resisted because of the comparable stiffness between your beam and column, isn't it? So here your beams and your column were having comparable stiffnesses. So when you talked about lateral load, you were able to get this type of bending moment diagram. This type of bending moment diagram you were able to get because of comparable stiffnesses that you had for your beams and columns. Because of these comparable stiffnesses, basically uh, your lateral load was getting transferred from slab to beam and then to columns, isn't it? Now if we talk about a general flat slab system, Mr. Sachin is asking if we release movements of beams, then it will be taken by column. Yeah, that's what that was the same example that I discussed over here, that if we release the beam moments, okay, if the beam moments are released, then what happens? Then the entire bending moment gets transferred to this column as vertical cantilever, isn't it? So your column will still take the moment, it will still resist the lateral load, but then what happens, that there is a very large amount of sway that you get. So because of this sway, this structure does not remain, I would say, structurally serviceable. So basically, then you have to introduce some other system to take care of your lateral loads. Understood? Yes. Now what happens when we talk about a flat slab system? When we talk about a flat slab system, the biggest issue with flat slab system is what? There are basically two issues that we have to understand. Now, first issue over here is that the slab is resting directly on columns. So there is no beam over here. So this is not there. So from load from slab is getting directly transferred to your column. All right. Now, what happens because of this? That your slab, if I take a simple slab unit like this, okay, and if it was resting on a column, one very important behavior that is shown by this slab is what? Because it is resting over the column, what is happening is that, let us say, whatever load was acting over here, I have just taken a simple tributary area of this slab, and let us say it is resting on this column over here. Now what happens, that whatever load was being taken by this column, sorry, whatever load was acting on this slab, let us say some p load was acting, that will be directly transferred to this column, and the load transfer will take place over a very small area like this, isn't it? Now because this load transfer is taking place over a very small area and it is then transferred to the column, the stresses are very high in this location. you get very high stress concentration in this location, isn't it? Because what load was acting on such a large tributary area is getting transferred to column through a very small cross sectional area of the column. So the axial stresses are very high. Because of this very high axial stresses, your concrete may fail over here at this transfer point. Okay. And this type of failure is called as what? What is the technical name of this type of failure that we might have? So this type of failure is called as the punching failure. So what is the meaning of, we will talk a lot about punching failure in the coming sessions, but just to give an idea, what is punching failure? Your slab is getting failed at this slab column junction. Why it is failing? Because the load of slab was getting transferred to column through a very small interface. Okay. Because of which your concrete may locally fail, and it is called as the punching failure. Why does this not take place in case of beams? Why does this not take place in case of slab beam system, slab beam column system? Because in slab beam column system, what happens is that if I had a, let us say this slab element, what happens if we have a beam element over here? So let us say if this was a beam element, isn't it? And if it was connected to a column over here, so this is my column. What happens now that the slab load transfers to beam, and then from beam it transfers to column, isn't it? So basically the beam in this case transfers the load in one way shear, and because of comparable stiffness of beams it also transfers a lot of load in bending. Okay, so the shear transfer mainly is one way shear, which does not lead to punching type failures. I will be talking more on this issue. I will show you some images also in the coming sessions. So therefore punching failures are not seen in slab beam column system, but when we talk about slab column system, punching uh, is a very critical action to be considered. All right. And punching is also called as two-way shear failure or two-way shear. Again, I will be talking more about this in our coming sessions. So when we talk about flat slab systems, one major issue related to flat slabs is the absence of beams, because of which punching is a very big problem. All right. Yes. Any confusion in this? So uh, how can we take care of this punching? How can we take care of this punching? So to take care of this punching, basically the strategy that we can adopt is to somehow increase this area, isn't it? As I told you, the problem is that the load from slab was getting transferred to column through a very small interface area, isn't it? Which was leading to an increase in local stresses, which was leading to punching like failures. So what we can do to counter this? So to counter this, either I can increase the overall thickness of my slab. This is one way of doing it, to increase the overall thickness. Okay. The other strategy, uh, I will draw it in section. So let us say first I had this type of slab. It was directly connected to column. This is my column. I am drawing it in section. This is slab. Okay. So one of the strategy is to increase the overall thickness of my slab like this. But naturally, this will lead to a lot of extra cost. So instead of increasing the overall thickness, what I do, that I increase the thickness locally. So let us say I increase the slab thickness locally like this. So what are these types of elements called as? Yes. What are these types of element called as? So these are called as drops. What do we call this as? These are called as drops. Okay. What is the other way that we can do? The other way is to somehow increase the local area of the column. So to increase the local area of column, I do something like this. So over here at the interface, what I have done, I have increased the local cross section of my column. What is this called as? What is this called as? Yes, anyone? So this can be called as a column head, or this is called as a column capital. These are the two names that you often see. So if you see any old masonry structures, if you see any old forts or old temples, or old monuments, you will always, or you will often see that there are column heads, isn't it? Or column capitals. So why are those column capitals provided? To help in the load transfer and to avoid punching like failures. All right. And the third option is to combine both these strategies. So the third option is to have drops plus column capitals. So you will have drops also, and you will have below this column capital also, like this. So this is the third strategy to mix, providing drops plus capitals. Okay. Remember, why are we doing all this? What is the reason for doing all this? Yes, tell me. Hello. What is the reason? To avoid punching failures. Yeah. See, remember, every time whenever you are doing flat slabs, the important thing to be understood is to avoid punching. Okay. Correct. So this was one of the very important issues related to flat slabs that we need to understand, that when load transfer takes place between slab and column, there is always an issue of punching that is possible, and to avoid punching you have to adopt certain strategies. Why are we so worried about punching? Because basically punching is a shear failure. As I told you, it is a two-way shear failure, and shear type of failures are brittle in nature. So they fail without giving you any warning, and they fail without giving you any time to evacuate. Okay. So they would be brittle like failures, and it will lead to catastrophic damages. Okay. And it basically leads to global failure of your building as a whole. So at any cost you need to avoid punching failures. You might have heard about the collapse of a building in Florida, I think, Miami, USA, Florida, state of Florida. Uh, I think you must have read or heard it, that it was a flat slab building that collapsed, and it was, I think, a 35-40 year old structure that collapsed. Okay. So the people who are doing the forensic investigation of that structure, they are saying that it was more of a punching related failure that took place. So one might say that why did it take place after 40 years? So see, you cannot predict brittle failures. They can take place anytime, and they are catastrophic, and uh, they are catastrophic in nature and lead to the overall collapse of your structure. Okay. So one has to be very careful about the punching failures, and we have to avoid it at any cost. All right. So this issue of punching is mainly related to your gravity load transfer. This issue of punching is mainly related to your gravity load transfers. Okay. So first problem, or the first issue related to flat slab, is that punching has to be dealt with. You have to be, as a designer, very careful, and you have to avoid punching at all cost. Okay. What is the second issue related? The second issue related is with respect to lateral load transfer. What is the issue? The issue is that if I am drawing a section over here, and let us say this is a column, this is a column. So these are your slab units, and these are your columns. I am drawing a cross section, a sectional elevation rather. Now if it is subjected to lateral loads, okay, if it is subjected to lateral loads, what happens? There is no beam, remember, there is no beam over here. So now the load transfer from slab directly has to be transferred to column. So whatever load was there on slab, let us say if we talk about seismic loads, whatever seismic weight was concentrated on slab, that has to be directly transferred to columns now. Now what happens, because your slab are relatively thin elements and your columns are relatively stiffer as compared to your slab, and there is no other stiff element present because there are no beams. So what happens is that it behaves more or less like a system which I had showed to you over here. I had showed you this system where if I have a beam which does not or cannot generate any end moments with columns, then there is problem in taking lateral loads. I had taken this system. So the same type of behavior is seen in your flat slab column system when subjected to lateral loads. Are you getting this point? Hello. So because of a large variation in stiffness, because the slab stiffness is very low as compared to the column stiffness, and because of absence of any stiffer element like beam, this situation under lateral load is similar to the situation that we had discussed, where the beam and column junctions were not able to generate end movements, sufficient end movements. So this is the same type of behavior that is shown by this flat slab column system. So I am drawing these circles indicating that they are acting as hinges. That means end movements are not able to generate at this flat slab column intersection. So if your end movements are not able to generate, what will happen? The bending moments in column that you will see would more or less would be like this, like cantilever end movements. Okay. Because of this, your flat slab system will undergo a very your flat slab system will undergo a very large value of sway. So this system, flat slab column system, is not suitable for lateral loads. Which system we are talking about? Flat slab column system. Not suitable for lateral loads. I'm not saying that there will be zero bending moment between flat slab and column. There will be some bending moment, but it will not be sufficient enough. Okay. So in practical terms, we will say that this is not suitable system to take lateral loads. Which system? Flat slab column system. So if our flat slab column system is not a suitable system to take lateral loads, what do we do? Or what can we do? Yes, tell me, what can we do in this case? Anyone? So in the previous example, what we had done, we had introduced a secondary system to take care of lateral loads. Which was that secondary system that we had introduced? So we had introduced a bracing system over here, isn't it? We had introduced a bracing system to take care of lateral loads. So similarly in flat slab systems, what do we have to do? Because our flat slab column system is not suitable to take lateral load, we have to introduce another system to take care of lateral loads, isn't it? And what is that system that we introduced to take care of lateral loads? Yes. Hello. What is that system that we introduced to take care of lateral loads? Shear walls, isn't it? So we introduce what are called as shear walls over here to take care of lateral loads. Okay. Are we clear with this? Yes. Any confusion? Hello. Okay. So the two important points to be understood over here is that, yeah, and then the third point I will tell you. Is this clear, first of all? Any confusion with this? So basically what we have discussed, that when we are talking about gravity loads, when we are talking about gravity loads, then your flat slab and column system will work. But then what is the problem that we have to be very careful? Yes, Mr. Farhan is asking how shear wall helps. So shear walls, what they do is that they will attract all the loads from your slab because of very very high stiffness of shear wall. They will be attracting all the loads from your slab. Okay, and then they will be taking this lateral load by generating end moments. So this is how your flat slab shear wall system will work. Dr. Saab is asking, when shear wall plus slab, then what will happen at junction? See, when we provide this shear wall, basically it has a very large plan area as compared to column. It has a very large plan area. So in these cases of shear wall, you do not get that hinge-like behavior. And what will happen, that this load will be transferred as a lateral load. It will be transferred to the shear wall, and because shear wall is a very very stiff element, it will take all this lateral load and it will resist this lateral load by development of shear and bending. Okay, yes, I will explain you the behavioral part when we move to shear walls. Okay, so related to gravity loads, the flat slab system was transferring its loads to column. The main problem over here was punching, isn't it? The main load problem was punching, for which we have to be very careful. And if we talk about lateral load, for lateral load, this flat slab column system is uh, not suitable. So we have to introduce another system that is called as the flat slab shear wall system. Okay. Any confusion in this? Yes. Any problems? Okay. So these are two major issues, that your flat slab column systems have a problem of punching, and flat slab column systems are not very good to take lateral loads. So you have to introduce shear walls to take care of lateral loads. Okay. The issue over here is, the third issue is that, let us say I make this flat slab. Let us say this was your flat slab. Okay, and let us say these were your columns. I'm just giving an example. These were your columns, and then you had a shear wall to take care of lateral load. All right. So if I just put the nomenclature over here, this was your slab, flat slab. These were your columns. These were your shear walls. Now, when it is subjected to lateral load, as I just told you, that this lateral load will be resisted by shear walls, because flat slab column system is not adequate to take care of lateral loads. So all the lateral load will be resisted by shear walls. What happens because of this lateral load? There will be some sway in your flat slab. So what is going to happen? I'm just drawing a very exaggerated diagram. So there will be some sway in your flat slab, let us say. Okay. Now, because of this sway, what will happen? That this system sways like this. Yes. Are you understanding what we are trying to discuss? Yes. So what did I say? That under the influence of lateral load, there is going to be sway. So let us call this sway as delta. Okay. All our lateral loads was being resisted by shear wall, but uh, due to the compatibility condition, you will agree that even your columns will sway by this delta value, isn't it? Even your columns will sway by delta. Do we agree or not? See, shear wall we are anyway designing for lateral loads, so it will be designed for this sway also. Naturally, whatever the moments generated due to sway, etc., all those will be considered by, or all those would be considered for design of shear walls. So that is done. But the problem is that because your columns are connected to flat slabs and because of the compatibility, even your columns will sway by delta value. Do we agree? Hello? Yes, no, not understood. Now, when these columns sway by delta, what will happen? That they will be having what is called as a P delta effect. So they are also subjected to a P delta effect. What is the meaning of P delta? That earlier your moments were, or your axial force was acting concentrically, but under sway effect, there is a delta sway in your column, and your axial load P will generate an additional moment equal to P into delta. This is basically called as the P delta effect. Now, because of this P delta effect, what happens? Remember that there is no beam to take care of the moments, isn't it? Because we are talking about a flat slab system. So there is no beam to take care of this additional load that is getting generated because of the sway. So all the load is transferred from slab to column. So this additional moment, P delta moment, what has been developed is transferred from the flat slab to columns. And when it is getting transferred, it generates what is called as additional punching shear. Okay. This P delta moment, I will tell you how this all is happening later on. But right now it is sufficient to understand that this additional P delta moment leads to additional punching shear. Okay. And when it leads to additional punching shear, basically the problem of punching will be more critical. Are we understanding this chain of flow or chain of logic? Hello. See, I will just quickly repeat what is happening. We are saying that we have a system, lateral load was not getting resisted by flat slab column system. So we have introduced shear wall. So all the lateral load is being taken by shear wall. But still the problem is that even though the lateral load is being taken by shear wall, still because of compatibility issues, the entire system undergoes the same amount of sway. And when it goes undergoes the same amount of sway, your columns also sway by the same delta. So they have to take an additional P delta moment. Now, when your slab transfers this P delta moment, this is transferred as an additional punching shear, which leads to an additional problem related to punching. Okay. So when our flat slabs are subjected to lateral loads, even though shear walls have been provided to take care of lateral loads, still there is this problem of compatibility of columns. Okay. Because of which there is a P delta movement that we get, which leads to punching. Okay. So this is another important problem that we have to understand. So therefore, to take care of this, our code is also very strict, and our code has given some additional clauses. So these columns are technically called as gravity columns. Why are we calling them as gravity columns? Why are we calling them as gravity columns over here? Because they are there to just take gravity loads. They are not there to take lateral loads. So what is the problem associated with gravity columns in this case? The problem associated with gravity columns is this compatibility issue. Okay. So your columns have to be designed for this additional P delta moments. Or if you are not designing for P delta moments, you have to basically involve certain strategies to take care of this additional sway and that additional punching that will be created due to sway. Okay. Are we clear? Any problem with this? Yes. Any confusion with this diagram? Any question? No. Very good. So the third issue over here is the issue of gravity columns. Okay. Gravity columns means your simple columns, but because they were just there to take lateral loads, in spite of this, they have to be designed for the compatibility issues, compatibility issues due to sway. Okay. And this becomes extremely important because see what will happen if these gravity columns are not designed for compatibility issues. Your lateral load is being resisted by shear wall, but your flat slab system will fail because your gravity columns were not designed to take care of these compatibility issues. So your flat slab column system will fail under lateral load because of this sway moments and because of the increased punching shear. So this is another problem that we have to understand. So what are three important problems when talking about normal gravity loads? You have to be careful about punching between flat slab columns. When you talk about lateral loads, you have to introduce another system which takes care of the lateral loads, so that is in the form of shear walls. And then when you are talking about the lateral loads, you have to be additionally careful related to these gravity columns, because even though they are not taking the lateral loads as such, but they have to be designed for these compatibility issues. So these are three major problems, or these are three major focus areas when we talk about flat slab buildings. Okay. Mr. Nilesh is asking how punching shear is increased by P delta effect. So punching shear, how it is increased, I will be talking when we talk more about punching. But just to explain right now, because of this additional moment that is getting generated, what happens is that if you look at this diagram, yeah, if you look at this diagram, what is happening, that in addition to, let's say, gravity load, now we have some unbalanced movement also, isn't it? We have some unbalanced movement. Let us say this is the unbalanced movement that we have, P delta. Okay. So what this P delta does is that when it is transferred to this column, it is transferred as shear. So basically we convert this P delta into shear, and then this movement is transferred as shear forces to our column. So this leads to an increase in the punching shear. I will tell you how to convert movements into shear and all those things. We will discuss when we discuss in greater details about the punching behavior. Okay. All right. Mr. Sachin is asking if the shear wall is resting on flat slab, then will there be an issue of punching? Yes, there will be an issue, but because your shear walls have larger plan area, isn't it? Your shear walls have large plan area as compared to columns, so therefore that punching is not predominant or it is not critical. But of course, there will be an issue of punching, but it is not critical because of the large plan area of shear wall that you have. All right. And in columns, what happens is that the plan area is very small. So the issue of punching is there. Mr. Sachin is asking if non-structural walls are resting on slab. Oh, okay, okay. You are asking about wall resting on slab. See, if wall is resting on slab, what will happen? Again, because of the large perimeter of the wall, generally it will not punch. It will not punch because of the large perimeter that you have of the wall. Okay, so it will be more of a one-way shear type of load transfer. But if you have a point load acting on slab, then it might lead to punching. But because wall, let us say if you're talking about a masonry wall resting on slab, resting on top of slab, because of the large perimeter, I would say punching is not a big problem in that case. Clear? Good. So these are three important issues that you have to understand. Any problem with these three issues? Any problem with these three issues? No problem. Very good. So in spite of all these issues, in spite of all these issues, uh, why are flat slabs so popular? Yes. Why are flat slabs so popular? What do you think? Yes. So flat slabs are so popular because of three. I mean, I will tell you why flat slabs are so popular. Over here, these are just some images of. I should have told you before, but because it has come up. So these are some images of your drops. So this is your drop. This is called as a capital. Okay. And this is drop plus capital. All right. So these three strategies we basically adopt uh, for resisting punching. Anyway, so in spite of all these three problems that we discussed, why are your flat slabs so popular? So the reasons for popularity is, first of all, first of all, this clear height that you get, isn't it? So basically, for same floor to floor height, you can get a larger clear height. Are you able to understand this? So what I'm saying, that let us say, I will give you an example to explain this point. That let us say, uh, yeah, over here itself you can understand. Suppose I wanted a 2.8 meter clear height. Okay, suppose I wanted a 2.8 meter clear height. Now, in case of a flat slab beam system, let us say this beam was 600 mm deep. So to achieve the same 2.8 meter clear height, I have to go for a floor to floor height of 3.4 meter in my conventional system. Okay. But in my flat slab system, for the floor height of 3.2 meter, I am able to achieve a 2.8 meter clear height. Let us say I give my slab thickness as 400. And assume that I am going for a flat plate system without drops, and my design slab thickness is coming out to be 400. So basically, for or to achieve 2.8 meter height, I could manage it with 3.2 meter floor to floor height in case of a flat plate system, let us say. And in case of conventional system, I had to go for a 3.4 meter height to achieve the same clear height. Is this issue understood? Yes. Is this issue clear? Yes, no. Okay. Now assume that if you are coming up with a structure somewhere, or if you are coming with a building somewhere, let us say you have permission to go till 30 meters. Okay. Let us say you have the permission to go, or let us say the permission that you have is 34 meters. Now, in case of uh, this system, conventional system, how many floors can you have? How many floors can you have? If your permissible height as per town and country planning rules was 34 meters above ground, I'm just giving a rough example. So with 3.4 meter floor to floor height, how many stories could you have? So you could have 10 stories, isn't it? You could have 10 stories or a G plus 9 structure. Are we getting this point? Hello. Yes. Are we getting this? Yes. Good. uh, make it 35 meters. Make this permissible height as 35 meters. Okay, just so that our example fits in properly. And with 35-meter height, how many stories I can have over here? How many stories I can have over here? So roughly I can have 11 stories, isn't it? I can have 11 stories in this case. In which case, when I was adopting when I was adopting a flat plate configuration. So what I'm trying to say, that you could manage 11 stories when you were providing a flat plate system, and you could manage only 10 stories in case of your conventional system. All right. So clearly, what is the advantage of having larger, greater number of stories? Yes, tell me. What is the advantage of having greater number of stories? Clearly, commercial advantage. You have been able to basically have uh, an extra story for the same building height, isn't it? So basically, you have been able to create greater commercial space. So you naturally get greater commercial advantage, isn't it? And if you are able to increase one story in 10 stories, basically you are getting a 10% increase in your commercial space, isn't it? So you are earning 10% more for the same total height that you are able to reach for your building. So clearly, this is a huge advantage that you get. This is a huge commercial advantage that you are able to achieve. So therefore, many people, what they are preferring these days is to switch to flat slab systems because of greater number of stories that you can accommodate between the same total height of your structure. Is this issue clear? What I'm trying to tell you? Hello. Is this issue understood to all? Good. So this is one of the most important issues related to flat slabs. And you know that for commercial building, when you have such a large uh, value for per square feet, if you are able to generate 10% more reality space, you know what are the implications of it, isn't it? So this is one of the most important reasons why flat slab systems are being adopted more and more these days. Secondly, another very important point is that in your commercial buildings, especially, there are lots of services that need to be provided, isn't it? So there are your electrical services, there is your plumbing, there is your firefighting. What else do? What else? What other type of services you see? Electrical services, plumbing systems, firefighting. What else? Yes, quickly. Hello. Electrical, plumbing, firefighting. Any other? Any other services that comes to your mind which have to be provided in commercial buildings? Air conditioning. So I will write HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning. What else? So electrical, plumbing, firefighting, HVAC. In addition, these days there have to be lots of these internet cables also, isn't it? So low voltage cables, electrical or high voltage, these are generally low voltage cables that have to be passed through. What else? Any other services? So mainly these services, I would say, have to be provided, isn't it? In plumbing also, there will be some cold water lines, hot water lines, etc., etc. So there are huge number of services that have to be provided. Now, when these services pass through, generally you see such types of blunders or such types of things on site, especially with beams. What is happening over here is that your service line is going through, and now because there was a beam which was obstructing the path of service line, what they have done is that they have cut sleeves in your beam, isn't it? They have cut sleeves in your beams, and generally these sleeves are done after your structural design is over, after your construction is over. So the structural engineer, even though the structural engineer may not agree with the position of sleeve, still these things are done on site without consulting the engineer. Okay. So sometimes these can become very problematic for your structure. The other alternative to avoid sleeve was to take your plumbing or to take your service line like this, isn't it? To take it below your beam and then take it again above and to take it like this. But normally or naturally, this type of uh, this type of option is not not generally used, generally not adopted on site, because of obvious reasons, that there is a pressure drop that will happen because of the difficulty in doing this type of uh, layout, etc., etc. So normally people will go for this sleeve type of arrangement. Okay, so what is happening is that if you have a system, let us say this was your beam and this was your slab. So what they are doing, that their service lines, they are puncturing your beam and they are taking your service line right through it. Okay, now if I had a flat plate system or a flat slab system, what would happen? Because there will be no obstruction of beams, what they would be able to do, they would be able to take their service line unobstructed like this. Okay, so it is a win-win situation for both. Service people are also happy because they are able to take their service lines unobstructed, and as structural engineers we are also happy because there is no sleeve or there is no cutting of our elements that is happening. So this is a win-win situation for both the parties involved. So another very important point is that it makes it very easy for the service lines to pass. And these days in commercial buildings, when you have lots of service lines passing through your structure, this is a very important advantage that you have. Okay. And the third reason, of course, is aesthetically pleasing, even though this is not a very important reason according to me. But still, yes, definitely it is aesthetically pleasing. It looks good if you compare it with your general beam frame system. Flat slabs look clean, isn't it? They look good. But the most important point, according to me, is the commercial area that you can achieve for the slabs for the same total height of your building. And the second important point, according to me, is the ease of service lines passing through your structural system. The third point is aesthetically pleasing for me. But if you ask to any architect, they will say that aesthetically pleasing is the most important point for them. Anyway, is this clear? And then, of course, as Dr. Saab is saying, that the shuttering is also easy. Though shuttering point, I would not very much agree, because even when we are to provide shuttering for drops, it is equally complicated. Yes, if you are having a flat plate system, then shuttering becomes easy as compared to a slab beam system. But if you are providing drops, then your shuttering is equally complicated compared with a conventional frame system. Okay, so because of these reasons, in spite of all the problems that we have discussed, flat slabs are still very popular. All right, any confusion in this or any point anyone would like to add? Yes, anyone would like to add any point? No, very good. So because of this, flat slabs are important. Of course, we have discussed the difficulties already, so this is just a repetition. Dr. Saab is saying that disadvantage is that it is costly. I would not say it is very costly. If you compare a simple flat plate, and if you compare that you are able to create more real estate, if you are able to create more commercial space, then this cost is actually offset, isn't it? Or if I tell you about the advantages of servicing services, then this cost gets offset. So I will not say cost is a, is an important issue as such. Yes, Dr. Saab is saying about the steel consumption, which he is saying is nearly double. Again, I will not agree to this, because you can create economical reinforcement arrangements. Okay, in flat slabs, you can create economical reinforcement arrangements. What happens is that many times people tend to provide mesh reinforcement in flat slab, top bottom mesh, both directions, all throughout the flat slab. So, of course, that becomes costly. But if you provide your reinforcements in bent up, and if you are able to provide it as per your requirement, I will not say that steel consumption becomes double. No. Mr. Mayank is asking about sleeve compulsory. What should be location of sleeves within the beam length? I will address this issue later on. Not right now. Yes. So these difficulties we have discussed. These difficulties basically we have discussed that what are the difficulties that we face. Okay. So I'm not going to repeat it. Of course, this third point over here, that manual calculations for flat slabs become very difficult to do because all the load transfer is stiffness based load transfer. Whatever your moment distribution happens is stiffness based, so it becomes difficult to use any manual calculations. So basically we have to rely on softwares. That is what we are going to do. So I will not uh, say it is a difficulty, it is a necessity that we have. Anyway, so now what are the three important aspects of your RCC flat slab buildings? So the first important aspect is your flat slab in itself. Okay, so basically we have got three important components. One is your RCC flat slab itself, that has to be understood properly. The second important component is your RCC shear walls, and the third important component are your gravity columns. So as structural designers, we have to understand these three issues properly. Okay, if we understand these three issues, then we will be able to understand a design of RCC building as a whole. So during this course, what we would be doing, we would be addressing these three issues first, and then we would be taking up a complete design of a RCC flat slab building. Okay, now when we talk about flat slabs, we would be discussing about these aspects. When we are going to talk about design of flat slabs, we will first discuss about the flat slab system and its components. What are the various flat slab components? What is the proportioning, basic proportioning, and basic sizing clauses given as per IS 456? Then we will talk about the modeling and analysis, how it is to be done in a software. We would be talking about safe software over here. Then the very important issues of design of flat slabs for one-way shear, punching, and flexure. Again, very important issue. Another important point over here is the point of deflections, and especially the long-term deflection issue. So how this needs to be addressed, what needs to be done, because flat slabs, because they are very thin elements, your slabs are very thin, there is no beam, so deflection becomes important criteria in flat slab systems. And your long term issue is even more important, so we would be discussing about this. Then in flat slab design we would be discussing about the punching reinforcement. So your code gives you an option that either you provide sufficient thickness to resist punching, or your code allows you to provide punching reinforcement to resist punching. So we would be discussing about punching reinforcement. We would be of course discussing about the detailings as per these two codes, 456 and SP34. And then in the end, this would be an interesting discussion that we will have, ductile detailing as per the intermediate moment frame system provisions of ACI 318. Okay, so actually when we talk about IS 456, there are two types of lateral load resisting system. One is called as the ordinary moment frame resisting system, OMRF, and the other is called as SMRF. I hope you are aware of these two systems. So OMRF is a simple beam frame column system, beam column frame system, which is designed as per IS 456, isn't it? And what is SMRF? It is a special moment resisting frame, beam column frame, which is designed as per IS 13920. Now, interestingly, in American code, there is an additional system which is called as IMRF, okay, which is known as intermediate moment resisting frame. So over here, this covers slab in ACI 318. The language they use is slab without beams, slab without beams connected to columns. So this type of system they address in intermediate moment resisting frame. So our flat slab system, if you see, it is this same system, slab without beam connected to column. So actually your ACI 318 tells you that even your flat slab plus column system can take some amount of lateral load. Okay. So this is a slight, I would say, uh, a slight change in the concept that I just gave you. According to Indian code, what we assume that flat slab column system will not take any amount of lateral load. Okay, it will take zero lateral loads, and all the lateral load has to be taken by flat slab plus shear wall system. Okay, but in American code, what they assume is, in American code ACI, they say that your flat slab plus column system can take some amount of lateral load, not very high. It can take some amount of lateral load, and those type of systems they call it as intermediate moment resisting frame. So we will not be going into in detail or in depth about intermediate moment resisting frame, because that is not available in the current Indian standards. So there is no point in discussing them in great details. But I will just tell you that some ductile detailing principles that we can adopt in your IMRF system. So in your flat slab column system, some ductile detailing principles that can be adopted, that I will tell you. Okay. All right. So these are the important issues that we would be covering when we discuss about the flat slab system. So flat slab is done. Once flat slab is done, then we will talk about the shear wall, because that is the second important component. In shear wall, we will see how to decide the positions of shear wall, how to proportion and configuration your shear walls as per 13920, what are the provisions given for shear wall design in 13920 as well as in 1893, and then how to actually design a shear wall using manual calculations plus your ETAP software. And in the end, we will discuss about detailing principles. So this would be the second component of your RCC flat slab building. First was flat slab itself, second was shear wall, and then we will come to gravity column system. So in gravity column, as I told you, the important point to be considered is some clauses as per 13920, where they tell you the compatibility issues and how to take care of punching of gravity columns when your flat slabs are subjected to lateral loads. So that is an important point. So those issues are given in IS 13920. We will be discussing those, and the design of your column as per the normal 456 and SP 16. So these are the three heads under which we would be discussing. Once all these three heads are discussed, we would be taking up a building. And because we have already discussed all these systems, our building design would be much simpler. Okay. So basically, when we would be taking our building, it would be consisting of a flat slab plus shear wall plus gravity column plus some footing system. So footing, we would be taking your simple isolated footing. So this will comprise of your complete RCC flat slab building, and that is the agenda of our course. Okay, so how will we proceed in the sessions from tomorrow? First, we will address the issues related to flat slab, all these issues which I just explained. Then we will address the issues related to shear walls. Then we will take up gravity columns. Footings is simple, it will not take much time. Once all these three are done, then we will take a complete building, and we will do all the things that we have done. We will apply them for this entire building. So this is how we are going to proceed. Yes. So I think when we start tomorrow, we are going to start with the first element, that is of course the flat slab element. So we will start with the components of flat slabs and what are the proportioning and configuration rules in IS 456 for the various components. And then we will move on to modeling analysis of flat slabs you on SAFE. So that is what we are going to start from tomorrow. So I think today we will stop over here. Today being the first session, will not go for a longer time. So I will stop, and If you have any questions now, you can now ask me. So Mr. Weber is asking, will drops be taken? Yeah, yeah, of course, drops will be taken. I told you over here when we are talking about flat slabs, of course, drops will be discussed because drops form the basis or a very important part of your flat slab design. Drops will be taken. Dr. Saab is saying, if possible, prepare a worksheet with manual calculation for shear wall. When we are going to discuss shear wall, I will tell you what are the design principles involved. It is a simple step-by-step process. So I think you would be able to prepare a worksheet on your own also. If you're not able to do it, maybe we can discuss during some extra session. Mr. Sachin is saying, in your upcoming lectures, will you please explain how wall load should be transferred on slab for this? Yeah, I will tell you how wall is to be considered in your analysis model uh, for your actual structure. I will tell you. Yeah, Dr. Saab always says that 1.5 hours is best, but generally we try to limit it to 1.75 hours, isn't it? And then we have some 10 minutes for questions. So after 1.75 hours, you can leave if you don't want to attend Q&A. But yeah, I know Dr. Saab has this complaint always. Mr. Sachin is saying IS 456 has given how to transfer the load of wall to slab using effective area method, but it is not clear. We don't need to follow that method. When we are using some software like SAFE or ETABS, it is able to do the load transfer automatically by itself. So we will rely more on the software for that. Okay. Mr. Sayyad is saying some building will all flat slab for commercial and at top residential beam column. Generally, those types of buildings have some issues where you are saying that, let us say, bottom floors are commercial spaces having flat slabs, and upper floors are residential floors having beam column frame system. What are the issues? That there are some planted columns over there, and then the planted columns rest on your flat slabs. So there are some problems related to that. So because in this course we will try to simplify things, so I will be taking a complete flat slab structure from top to bottom. Okay. Yes. Mr. Nilesh is asking which version of safe is needed. You can use any version that you have. You can use safe 16, you can use safe 19. I would be using safe 12.2, which I have with me. So that is easy to install and easy to run. There are some issues related to safe 12.2 which I would be telling you, uh, which have been rectified in the later versions of safe, but still I would be using the same 12.2. Mr. Sayed has this problem. He has asked me before also about eccentric footings. I will tell you certain things about it as we when we reach footings. I will tell you some basic principles that you need to keep in mind. Okay. Yes. What else? Mr. Weber is asking about flat slab with perimeter beams. Yes, our buildings will be having perimeter beams also, because there are certain issues because of which we have to provide perimeter beams in flat slabs generally. So we would be discussing this issue, when to provide perimeter beams. If you are not providing perimeter beams, what to do? What are the issues related to not providing perimeter beams? These things we would be discussing. Good. Yes. What else? So I think there are no more questions. So tomorrow when we meet, what we are going to start with? We are going to start with flat slabs. Okay. Flat slab means the flat slab portion of your building we are going to start with, and we will start with understanding of different components related to your flat slabs, like drops, column capitals, perimeter beams, strips, design strips. All these issues we will address tomorrow, and what are the codal provisions for it. Okay. All right. So that is it for today then. Thank you, and we will see you tomorrow at 8:30. So all of you have been added to that integrated portal. I will tell you how you can watch these sessions online. What is the process for it? I will just write it on the group after today's session. I will tell you what is the process to watch these sessions online. All right. Thank you. Have a good day, and we will see you tomorrow at 8:30. Bye bye.